What is up, everybody? Welcome to the very first ever episode of Final Second Sports Talk. Again, I am your host, Tyler, for this channel. Just going to go right into it because there are a couple of topics I wanted to talk about first. So, of course, the NFL is the only major sport league right now that really isn't being affected much regarding the coronavirus as much as MLB, NBA, soccer, all these other sports. But I did find out that most of you might already know this, but the NFL draft is actually going to be televised like online. It's not going to be in person. It's a 3-day draft, which is, I want to say, bigger than MLB, or maybe the same length, because I know baseball's draft is pretty big as well. But it's being done over the internet. They're not going to have anyone there in Vegas, which I think is very interesting. Of course, it's going to be the first time ever that a draft of any sport is going to be done over the internet. It's going to be interesting to see how that pans out with like the actual kids going into the league, the teams themselves, and all that stuff. It's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. And then also, the only other sports league to officially announce this is the WNBA. They're going to be doing the same format with their draft coming up soon. Again, being live, hosted from the internet. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least, to see how those two definitely pan out regarding drafts being done over the internet. Which then leads to a question. We've already seen NFL announce it. WNBA announced it. Of course, the NBA is one of the biggest leagues right now, not having any games or anything like that, and had to cancel pretty much a lot. They canceled their season as of right now. Of course, we don't know if they're ever going to come back to finish the season. We don't know if we're going to actually get the rest of the regular season. We don't know if we're just going to go right into the playoffs. We don't really even know if we're going to get any basketball until next season. Which, even if we do get basketball next season, which we will, when? Will it start on time? Will it start later than usual? Who knows? And that brings up a big question, is like, do you think that the NBA should start right into the playoffs when this is all said and done? I mean, I look at it both ways, from yes and no. Yes, they should go right into the playoffs because, you got to think about when the NBA was shut down in earlier March, like, players had teams had a month left of the regular season. And you got to think, I know there are some teams that are fighting for playoff spots and fighting to actually get the worst record so they can get that top pick. I know that's happening to a lot of teams. But you got to think about, at this point, under the current circumstances, it's like the record you have is the record you should have going to the draft. And we shouldn't even have a draft lottery, in my opinion. If we do just go into the postseason, the playoffs, I should say, we shouldn't even have a lottery. It should literally, this year, should go off of, you had the worst record, you get the first pick, which would mean that the Warriors would get the first pick, which I'm not a big fan of, but, hey, I have to look at it fairly, and, if we didn't get to finish the season, there shouldn't be a draft lottery. So that's kind of where I stand on that. But do I think that they should finish off the regular season? Yes. I definitely think so, just because it's fair. Like I said, people are fighting to get in the playoffs or to literally tank so they can get that first overall pick. This is a lot of teams are fighting right now, and this was shortly after the trade deadline where a lot of players made some big trades to help them in the playoffs or help them tank. So it's, it came at such a bad time. I honestly feel like if this thing was to ever have come, and I'm not saying there was a good time for this to come, but it would have probably not have been as bad if it came in November, December, shortly after the season started. But because it came a month before the playoffs were supposed to start, it kind of sucks. But yeah, honestly, I can see it both ways. I'm going to be happy regardless whenever basketball comes back. I just want basketball to come back, honestly. if they go right into the playoffs, I think they should have a layout of condensing the series also, because I know it's 3 rounds, like including the, um, no, it's 4 rounds including the finals, but it's like 7 game series, every series. I think the first like 3 rounds should be condensed to best of 5, and then the finals should still be a best of 7. But with it, already being this situation that it is, condensing the series would just be able to get through those first couple of rounds faster, to kind of make up the time. And I know people are going to say probably not do that, just because of like, if you condense the series, then people aren't getting that fair advantage of possibly going to a game 7. Well, you gotta look at baseball. MLB does in the very first round, it's a best of 5. So, I mean, players haven't complained necessarily. So, you gotta think about it that way. NFL, I mean, of course, we all know they're 1 game eliminations, but that's just because of that's the way that sport's kind of designed to play in the playoffs. But I go both ways, honestly. I don't really have an answer to, do I think we should just restart with the regular season, or if we go into the playoffs. Again, depending on when this all comes back into play, honestly, because I heard a rumor that the NBA is not going to be coming back till like mid to late June, and that's when free agency is like in full swing. So, if it comes into a point where you're going to be messing up with free agency, the draft, and all this other stuff that usually goes on, it's like, at that point, I wouldn't even say, I literally would just cancel this season, honestly. I cancel this season and just move on, honestly. It would suck, it really would, because there were a lot of teams that were looking really good and that I couldn't wait to see in the playoffs, that were going to be in the playoffs. But, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, honestly. If it happens to come into May, then I could definitely see them playing out the regular season, and then right into the playoffs. And then you wouldn't have that much of an effect. But we'll see exactly when they actually come back. Which, another thing, going back to when I said about the drafts being televised from the internet, NBA could probably follow that format for this year, and they most likely will, in my opinion. With the NFL and WNBA already doing it, I wouldn't be surprised if the NBA does it, honestly. They haven't announced anything regarding it, honestly, that I've at least found, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're the next league to come out saying that their draft is going to be held online and from home. Because, I mean, their draft gets done in a couple of hours. There isn't as long as the NFL and the MLB, which I'm surprised the MLB hasn't announced anything yet, because theirs is like in June as well. Same time as the NBA's roughly. But I'm surprised they haven't said anything about that either, because theirs is, just like the NFL, it's a couple of days. But then also regarding back to the NBA and the attendance, another biggest thing is, if the NBA was to come back earlier than expected, then we don't play with any fans. And how does that work out? I am as much as I love basketball and I would just want to see it back sooner than later, I would want there to be fans. And, I actually wasn't a believer of having there be fans, because I didn't really care at first. I was just like, bring back basketball, honestly. If there's no fans, there's no fans, just bring back the sport. But then after a few weeks of thinking about it, and hearing other players in the league, like LeBron James mainly, and, some other players, it actually made me think and realize how important fans are to sports in general, and how they make those memorable moments. And fans need to be there, honestly. Fans do just need to be there. So if the NBA is going to come back, they got to bring back their fans, because you just have to. I mean, there have been some games out there, of course. I know a few years ago, you know, the White Sox and the Orioles played a game in Baltimore with no fans, and that was due to all the riots that were happening in Baltimore. And then I want to say that same year or year after or something like that, around that same time, the Sacramento Kings, and I forgot who they were playing that game, they played a game with very few fans in the stands in Sacramento due to riots again outside the arena. You know, that was like our first couple of cases in the last like 10 years. We saw like no one or very little people in the stands. And it wasn't fun. It was kind of an eerie feeling watching those games live and watching highlights and stuff. So, not a fun time. So fans need to come back. Fans really do need to come back. Because there's no sports without fans, in my opinion. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was regarding the MLB. Because they did actually mention that when they do come back, which, again, we don't know. MLB hasn't announced anything regarding when they're going to come back. But when they do, they did say that there were going to be no travel restrictions with their players, no health restrictions. I don't necessarily know what that means specifically, but I would imagine, you know, they're not going to like be tested on a daily basis or something like. I don't really know. They just said no health restrictions, and that fans are going to be allowed. So it looks like MLB is going the route where I kind of want the NBA to go. When the MLB comes back, fans are going to be allowed in the games. There's like going to be no restrictions with that, which that's what I think NBA should do. You know, this is a tough time in the sports world. It really is. But I mean, this is what we got going on so far. I mean, drafts are already being televised over the internet and from home. You know, leagues already have, you know, canceled seasons, canceled spring training, you know, and just we don't know when sports are going to return. This is a very weird time. Of course, this is the first time ever. I think this is actually just the first time in history that we've had like no sports at all. I could be very wrong about that, and I most likely am, but at least this is one of the few times in history that we have no sports. And it's really, really weird. It's just that one day. It was that Thursday. I don't remember exactly what day in March it was, but that day after the NBA announced its shutdown and MLB was soon to follow and NHL followed, which NFL kind of followed, but they didn't really because, of course, their season doesn't start till like August, September. It's like the whole sports world stopped. It was a very eerie feeling. But yeah, so that's going to wrap up this first video of Final Seconds. You know, I'm going to try and get some more sports stuff out there. I know there's not a whole lot of sports devoted topics right now because, again, there's really nothing talking about. The next video I'll probably do is something regarding NFL free agency, you know, with Tom Brady going to the Buccaneers, Melvin Gordon going to the Broncos, stuff like that. Even though I'll be late to react to those, like, headlines, I'll still just do it just because there's nothing going on in any other sport league right now. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this very first video. Please share this video with some other friends that you think might enjoy it. Because again, this channel is just going to be really heavily devoted to sports. You know, please subscribe if you're new, honestly. It helps the channel out. And yeah, like, thanks for watching.